intermittent fasting is good for your brain. That is really important. If we leave you, we're hopefully going to leave you with a lot of important things today, but also having some people say 16 hours, but 14 or 12, elongating the amount of time between you when you eat at the end of the day and when you start again in the day is good for your brain. So if you can, try to eat within an 8-hour period. Try to have 12, 14, or 16 hours in between when you eat at night and when you eat during the day. So that's why we didn't feed you. Ha. There's a purpose to everything. We will feed you a little bit after this, but and then you'll have had hopefully 12, 14, or 16 hours. I just want to ask before we get started, any board members from the Women's Alzheimer's Movement here, I'd like them to stand. Natalie, I saw you somewhere who's super fit, raised a lot of money. I don't know where she went, but there's some people here who are on the board of the Women's Alzheimer's Movement. Those are people who work really 24/7, 365 days a year, trying to engage other women, inform them, inspire them to become the center of this movement. So I don't know, oh, there she is, Natalie Fair. I just want to shout her out. She's on the board and really works tirelessly so I just wanted to thank her for that. Sandy, are we ready? Can we begin? Okay, so we're streaming this. Last year we had hundreds of thousands of people who joined us for these panels, so we're going to do it again this year even bigger because we're trying to get this information, which is up to date and critical to everybody in the country. So that's why we're streaming it out. You're getting it first because you raised the money and you came, and deep gratitude once again to you. This is what I do for a living. I'm a journalist. I've been a journalist for 40-some years, probably all my life. I'm interested in getting information that will inform other people, will inspire them, and will get them to get out of wherever they are and pass it on. So I'm going to try to make this digestible. I'm going to try to make it facts you can actually use. It's a cheat sheet list, so when you go to a dinner party, you're going to sound super smart, super up to date. That's important, and you're going to have information that other people don't have. So that's my goal for today. It was for you to come here, have fun, be in community, because it's not good to be isolated. That puts you on the path to Alzheimer's. So the whole goal of today was for you to have fun, for you to exercise your body, make sure you're aware that it's connected to your brain, exercise your brain, feed you with food that's good for your brain, and give you information that nobody else has that you can use when you go out of here. So everybody up here is an expert. Everybody up here is the best in their field, and I want to thank them so much for taking time on a Saturday in June. June is Brain Awareness Month, so you'll be super smart all through June because you're going to have all this information. Dan Gatsby, my friend who's been on the front lines of caregiving on behalf of his wife, Bea. We've been in this together. Lisa Mosconi, Studying Women will tell us up to date. Sheila Klehm, who's going to talk to us about, from UBS, about the finances of this and what we can do today to make sure you're ready financially. Wendy Suzuki, who knows everything about exercise and nutrition and is a researcher, and my great friend Bob Roth, who's going to sell us on why meditation. He's my trainer, he's my educator, and he's my friend, and he got me into meditation, and anybody who knows me would have said that was an impossible task. And he did it because meditation is good for your brain, and if I can do it, for sure you can do it. So I just want to start with Lisa because I've just done a story on the Today Show with her, and she has news that we did not have a year ago, and that's particularly about women's brains. What happens to women's brains before menopause, before you are perimenopausal, and then when you are menopausal, and it is a game changer. Lisa, can you tell everybody here what they need to know and what we now know about women's brains?
Yes, gladly. So I think we have known since the 1990s that Alzheimer's disease affects more women than men. Out of every 3 Alzheimer's patients, 2 are women. And for decades, we just did not know really why. It was something we just kind of took it for granted as scientists, that aging, obviously is a major risk factor for Alzheimer's, but female sex is the second major, is really the most important risk factor for Alzheimer's, and researchers just didn't have a chance to look into that. So as of this year, we actually know when Alzheimer's really affects women, and when women's brains become more vulnerable to Alzheimer's pathology and Alzheimer's plaques. And we also have very strong clues as to what triggers that in the female brain. And that's
Can you tell them?
Yes, that's the switch to menopause. So what happens only to women as they reach middle age, which is really when Alzheimer's kicks in, is that we all experience a decline in estrogen levels. So your hormones, your female hormones go down. And usually when women think about menopause, and we were talking about it yesterday, all the hot flashes, night sweats, insomnia, memory loss, confusion, they don't start in your ovaries, they start in your brain. There's a strong connection between the brain and the hormones that's been completely overlooked in the medical field pretty much forever. And we really
pause 1 second, because what she just said is a game changer, and nobody was saying this. When women are in their 40s, after you're giving birth, right, all through your life, your hormones are changing, ever since you're a little girl, and they're changing all through your life. But when you become, the scans that she has done show brains before menopause and after menopause, and the change is dramatic.
It's dramatic, and it's exactly when Alzheimer's takes place in a woman's brain. So not when you're 70, not when you're 80, when you're 40, 50. The average age at menopause is 51 in Alzheimer's, and these changes start taking place prior to that, during perimenopause.
So that is super important,
Scary.
because we need to get this message out to people who are in their 30s, people who are in their 40s, people who are in their 50s and in their 60s. And I said to her, and this is a story that she and I are doing that's going to be on the Today Show on NBC at the end of June, but I wish, that we could get this out to every single woman, because you said 80% of women will go through neurological changes, and they don't even know it. They think it's bodily changes. It's neurological. And doctors, scientists, the medical profession are light years behind understanding women's brains and women's health. They have not looked at it. And this is a travesty.
This is scary. When I looked at that, obviously I'm a woman, I'm a scientist, and I just could not believe my eyes. We looked at women who are premenopausal, perimenopausal, and postmenopausal, and men of exactly the same age. And the men are doing great. They're like in their 40s and 50s, early 60s, of course, and their brains look fantastic. And if you look at women's brain, exactly at the same age, if you're premenopausal, your brain is up here. If you're perimenopausal, your brain is 30% worse. And if you're postmenopausal, it's even, there's really a strong decline as women go through this transition. So we really need to find out why, what triggers emergence of Alzheimer's plaques at that stage of life, and what to do about it and how to fix it.
And so that's the money that you raised is going to answer these questions. So
Thank you.
I just want you to know that. And then I'm going to move on. But the question that I had, and that I'm sure everybody has, what do I do about it? There's so much disputing or conflicting information about hormones. And your advice to women, and what was the figure you told me that this year, how many women will go into menopause?
850 million people, women all over the world, either just entered menopause or are about to enter menopause, 850 million.
So your advice is to obviously check with your doctor, but so many women I talk to tell me, my doctor doesn't know anything.
Yes, this is a common
I
problem.
confront that. This is a huge issue.
It's huge. I mean, I'm in neurology, and I did not even think about menopause until a few years ago. It's just not a connection they were trained to make. It looks like, here's your brain and your hormones are something else, and it's not true. They're very strongly connected. They have a strong impact on the brain. Estrogen is not just the hormone that makes you fertile or infertile. Is actually the hormone that regulates your, it's a neuroprotective element inside your brain. It literally shields your brain from harm, and it activates your brain. It makes it more energetic. So once you lose the estrogen, your brain loses protection and also loses energy. So literally, there's a strong decline in energy levels in a female brain. as we get older that is hopefully reversible and treatable, and we need to do that. We all need to do that.
So who do they go to? Who do people go to? Because literally I hear people all the time tell me, my doctor knows nothing about women's health.
A lot of doctors know nothing about women's health. You come to us.
At the
start.
Alzheimer's Prevention Clinic at Cornell Weill, but you can also look
But
for a doctor,
a neuroendocrinologist. These are doctors that are trained in both neurology and endocrinology, and they should be able to advise you and to really be up to date with the literature.
so to ask for a neuroendocrinologist, try to find that person. Also in her book, which all of these people have books, by the way, and they're sold here today, and she can talk to you more, but she also believes in eating for estrogen. If cancer runs in your family and estrogen is not a possibility for you, there are ways that she goes through in the book, and I'll come back to that, about how to eat estrogen-rich food. There's a huge connection. Obviously, Wendy, I want you to pick up, because diet, everybody, every doctor, every researcher around the world that I go to and I say, what can I tell people? The number one thing is exercise and food. Change the way you move, number one, and change what you eat. Wendy, what is the correlation between all of that?
So can I just jump back to what is the most exciting thing
Yes.
that we have found in the last year? Because what I want to share really leverages off of what Lisa just shared, which focuses on middle age. And so this is a study that just came out this year, and they looked at women in middle age. Study was started in 1968. They followed up 44 years later and looked at what propensity these women had to develop Alzheimer's disease. And what they found was that if you were high fit in middle age, you only had a 5% chance of developing dementia. Whereas if you were low fit, the chance went up to 36%.
And that's women starting at 40? They tracked women to 40 to 65,
exactly.
right?
They started women in middle age.
So if you did that class, you're high fit, right?
Yes, exactly. So all of you
Oh, better get going.
have just, confirmed that you are in that high fit group. Also, I know that there's a lot of people that are wanting to start this thing. I don't want to leave you with the idea that everybody has to become a triathlete to be able to get these benefits. Even walking, and these are older studies, show that regular walking, 3 to 5 times a week walking, can decrease your chance of Alzheimer's. But this is the new study specific for women in middle age, that if you're a high fit at middle age, you are really affecting your chances of getting Alzheimer's, probably because we're interacting with the hormones that Lisa was talking about.
Right. So you think that that's new information that can change how people kind of go through their life? Because we're obviously all, if you look at blue zone people and people who live longer, they're people who are moving, hence the name Move for Minds. Mm-hmm. They're moving really throughout their day.
Yes.
So most people are kind of sedentary.
Right, exactly.
In the United States. Western diet.
Yeah.
Really, you said to me the other day, if you could change one thing, it would be to ask people to stop eating processed foods. That really messes with your brain.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say that is absolutely important, but as your organization suggests, simply moving. You don't even have to get up to the highest level of cardio immediately, but simply walking, we know, has an effect, and has an effect for the long term. That's why I call exercise the most transformative thing that you can do for your brain today. Because all of you, if I measured you, your mood would be higher. How many people feel like they're in a better mood now because of this class? All of you, yes. All of you would have better focus and attention, because we know that exercise can immediately improve your focus and attention. And you would all have better reaction times as well. So exercise gives this immediate boost, but as I was just saying from this recent study, it is causing a decrease in your propensity to get Alzheimer's and dementia. And
why is that? What is the connection, so people understand that?
Yeah, so the connection is that what exercise is doing every single time that you do it, it is increasing growth factors and other positive hormones in your brain that help strengthen, increase synaptic connectivity, which is the way that individual brain cells communicate with each other. One of the biggest growth factors that we know is very strongly affected by exercise is called BDNF. It's just a growth factor. It's just a acronym for a growth factor. But basically, you want as much of this growth factor floating around your brain as you can. And the best way to get that increased growth factor is to exercise, including walking. Regular walking, especially if you get more the cardio walking, can increase BDNF levels as well. So that regular increase is really going to help your brain stay fit and improve and keep learning.
What was the acronym for what she just said?
See? Their memory is better.
Okay.
From exercise.
So that's important. Bob, we've talked a lot we talk about exercise, we're talking about food, we talk to women who are middle age or 40, there are women also who are at the height of their careers, they're working full-time, some are working 2 jobs, some are single moms, caring for parents, caring for kids, trying to be providers. We know that sleep clears the brain. Why is meditation so important for everybody to do for their brain, not just for their temperament, but for their brain?
Okay, but first, can we just thank Maria Shriver?
Oh, stop it.
I have to. I have to. She's an extraordinary woman.
Okay.
Extraordinary woman. Sorry. So first, how many of you, if I could just say, how many of you here eat well? Try to eat well. And how many try to eat well on a regular basis? And exercise on a regular basis? How many of you here meditate? And how many meditate daily on a regular basis? Fewer numbers. The thing is, when we want to be healthy and fit, so much of what we do is from the neck down. And yet this little 3-pound brain controls a lot. And the field of meditation has always, from times immemorial, theoretically was supposed to be a way of, you could say, exercising the brain, exercising those connections. Could I just take a second to explain? So there's been a lot of confusion about what meditation means. Some people do guided meditation, some people do vipassana, some people do transcendental mantra meditation. So just quickly, and then I'll answer your question, but I think it helps because this is a field that has been missing. This is a missing element that is absolutely essential for overall health, for prevention, and for waking up and training the brain. So the analogy I like to use is an ocean. You're on a little boat and you're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and then all of a sudden you get these giant 30, 40-foot high waves, and you could think the whole ocean is in upheaval. But if you could do a cross-section of the ocean, you'd realize the ocean in reality is over 1 mile deep, and while the surface of the ocean may be turbulent, and tsunami-esque, the depth of the ocean, by its nature, is silent. And so brain researchers have identified, the purpose of meditation has been to bring equanimity or rest or something to the brain, reboot the brain. They used to think that all meditations were the same, but now brain research has identified 3 basic types. One is called focused attention, and that's where that's a concentration form of meditation. That's where you try and clear your mind of thoughts. When someone told me to do that, I thought, right, then I'll create peace in the Middle East right after I... But that's like trying to stop the waves on the surface of the ocean. When you do that, it creates something called gamma brain waves, 20 to 50 cycles per second. The other one is open monitoring, which is a mindfulness approach, which is a body scan, dispassionately observing, you could say, your thoughts or your waves rising up and down. So you feel some equanimity, and that creates largely theta brain waves, 5 to 7 cycles per second. And the third is self-transcending. And that is what I taught Maria and others here. And that recognizes that there's a vertical dimension to the mind, that we all have we feel things deeply, and that hypothesizes that within every one of us, there's a level of the mind right now, deep within, that's already calm and settled. We don't have to force it, we don't have to visualize it, we've just lost access, like the silent depth of the ocean. And when you experience that in that form of meditation, you have something called alpha-1 brainwave patterns, which are 8 to 10 cycles per second. You also see a global sort of EEG coherence, a connection across all different parts of the brain, and your body gains, now I'm going to answer Maria's question, your body gains very profound state of rest, in many regards deeper than deep sleep, and reduces cortisol levels by 30 to 40%, which is essential because cortisol is our stress hormone. I'll conclude by saying, this is not a question of what's better. There are many tools in a toolbox. There are many exercises that we do. If it's a legitimate form of meditation, which means it's you can do it, and it has research to show that it helps, you should add that to your toolbox, whether it's a concentration or the mindfulness or TM. It's not an either or, it's a yes and it is essential for overall health. And overall health, as we hear from all of us here, but mainly Maria, who I adore, that is essential for brain health. Sorry for going so long.
No, but Bob, what I thought was so interesting, I read this week, and it's something that somebody had come to pitch me a documentary on, which you do a lot of work with vets. My friend Lee Woodruff over here also, great architect of change, does a lot of work with vets. The brain is not only, this conversation we're having today is not only about cognitive health, preventing Alzheimer's. It works for people who are vets who come back with PTSD. But I read an incredible study about so many women who find themselves in domestic violence situations, and they're showing signs of Alzheimer's because they've been hit. And nobody thought to look at women in domestic violence situations. Nobody thought to look at their brains. They just looked at their bodies.
There's an amazing book called The Body Keeps the Score, which is you can have emotional experiences even as a young person and forget them, but your body remembers. And what happens with a traumatic response is there's a hyperarousal of the amygdala, which is your reactivity center. There's a shutting down of the, or a diminishment of the, in some case, shrinking of the prefrontal cortex, which is your executive functioning and your rational filter against impulsive decisions. And the research we've done on veterans, on women who are survivors of domestic violence, and now we're starting with 10-year-old kids, because that's where really, if your children could do this starting at 10 or 5 years old, young girls, that's a whole new vista. But it does have a profound effect, and the Department of Defense has funded research, and the NIH has funded research.
And I think that's just another example about how we don't think about the connection between the brain and the body. We look at someone's body, and if they have a bruise, we don't think about, is there a bruise in the brain? When we lose our period or go through changes, we don't think or make the connection that it's coming from our brain. And so when we exercise, right, we think about, oh, it's going to change, our bodies are going to look better, but we don't really make the connection about what it's building in the brain. And that's really the focus of this movement. Yes, it's to raise money to fund women's-based research, but it's really to empower everybody in this room with the most up-to-date information, but information that can really change your brain health today. You know, and so I want to bring in my friend Dan. Dan and I have been working together. Dan is a full-time caregiver for his extraordinary wife, Bea Smith, who is renowned as an incredible chef. And I met him at the very early stages of your entry into this disease. And today it's really bleak for you. And you have used your voice when Bea couldn't. People in the African American community twice as likely to get Alzheimer's. The Latina community 1.5 times. So trying to get this message out to Main Street, out to different communities is a critical part of the work that I'm doing, and I know it's a critical part of the work you're doing, Dan. Tell people today what it's like to be caring for somebody that they love.
Well, first of all, Maria, anytime you have anything to do with anything because of your history of being committed, I'm here for you. So I want you to know that. The toughest thing about being a caregiver, particularly when you've had a relationship that borders on perfect, where 2 is 1, could look across the room and talk to each other without verbally communicating, and suddenly having that communication break down and you look into that person's eyes and you don't see the same thing and you don't get the same reactions, or you're not there for the person because they're not there for you, is sort of like one hand trying to clap. It's a very frustrating experience. And as that evolves and you don't know what's going on, you think that person's not there for you. And there's an old saying, you could do bad by yourself. And so many people, particularly women, men, women, significant others, go through that. As a caregiver, you suddenly realize that you're in a 24/7, 365, nonstop war. War on your sanity, and then once you realize what the person is dealing with, on trying to protect their dignity. Because you see a person that, in my case, an Uber woman, long before there was a car company, who could literally do anything, who could speak fluent German, who could look at food and cook it, who could look at a page of copy and go to a camera and deal with 2 or 3 people and know where she was, sort of like playing a sport and knowing every position and who was there, and also being able to look at the clock and know when to score or not. And to see that slowly just fritter away, and you keep asking yourself, why? What's going on? Why is this person not the way? And wanting that person to be what they were, and realizing that they will not be that and may never, and ultimately realize not. It's the most frustrating thing. So the caregiver goes through all of those range of emotions, and personally they go, after they start to see it, they see the destructiveness, because that brain is trying to right itself, but it can't. It's trying to do all of the things that people here are talking about, and it can't. And you trying to get back to where you were, and it won't happen. It puts a tremendous accordion pressure on yourself. And for me, it took me to places that I never thought I would go. It took me to not wanting to be with her, to not understanding. Anyone who's been involved with Alzheimer's, be it a spouse or a parent or a grandparent, and you have to spend 15 or 20 minutes, and then it turns, why me? Why am I here? What can I can't take this. You can't wait to get away, and you hate leaving. You can't stand coming back, and you can't wait to be there. So you go through this emotional pressure cooker. And I can tell you, to tie it in with Move for Minds, I got to that place, and I went to 250 pounds. Today I'm 220 pounds. I was drinking too much. I was not eating the right foods. I was comforting myself through a whole host of things. I wasn't meditating, and I started to meditate. I exercise, and right now I'm at 60, almost 64 years old. I'm down to 220 pounds, and I'm feeling better than ever. I've also included, because I want to be candid, I've included someone else in my life. I had to. When you sit in a room with someone and there's nothing there, when you can't talk to that person, when the person doesn't know what day, what month, what year, doesn't know what a chair is, when you ask the person where they're from, they don't know it, they don't know their mother's name, and you sit in that room and that person is slowly turning the lights off, it takes you there. And I realized, I think you mentioned earlier, it's sort of like riding in a plane and the plane drops from 35,000 feet to 15 and the oxygen mask comes on. Before you can worry about the next person, you got to put the mask on yourself. Because you're no good if you can't manage yourself. And you can never, whatever relationship it is, you can never emote happiness and be happy and feel good and not feel stressed and have that cortisol all coming through, which is all basis of inflammation, which takes you on a spiral down like a drain. If you don't have a sense of purpose, have a sense of knowing what happiness is, having a sense of that you can be happy again, all of that is part of being a caregiver. And what this whole Move for Minds is that activity that you have to stay in motion, to stay in game, to look out and say, I can make it better for myself, and then I can help others. That's why I'm here today, Maria. That's why I'm here, and I will always be here for you, because what everyone up here said, you know, I liken it to, you know, meditation. That's that hippie stuff. But it's not. You know, eating right and putting organics in your body, that's important because of the processed foods and what it does. I've seen it all, I've lived it all. As a caregiver, 24/7, I've watched my wife destroy stuff. I've watched her pull things apart, trying to figure out, and you can't change them. It's a form of domestic terrorism. There's no negotiating. There's no making them right. I have people calling me up and saying, my auntie, I'm trying to get her to do this the other way. She don't understand. And then to take that to a whole nother level within my own particular ethnicity, within the African American community, we are so traumatized by race and racism and wanting to prove that we are just as good as everyone else, and that we can't talk to someone, or that we have to pray for it. And I say to my folks, I say, pray for the scientists to come up with the cure, because you can't just pray and not have a sense of making something change that's going to affect you on a day-to-day basis. And it's dramatic. I mean, the research is not there in the African American Hispanic community. There's so much distrust. And what I'm trying to do is break that down and say, you've got to believe. You got to get over Tuskegee. You've got to get over the feeling that if you're black and you're white, and if one person needs a transfusion or whatever, one person is going to go out with a toe tag and the other person is going home. And there's all of that. So we have to build bridges. It really starts socially. We have to build bridges, and that's why I'm here, Maria. So.
Wow. Wow. I just want to say that there are approximately 16 million unpaid caregivers like Dan just in the Alzheimer's dementia space. Just in this space, 16 million people who are working 24/7 with no support, who have to leave jobs, who have to sell houses, who have to foreclose on lives and their own families. There's nothing that sends a family into bankruptcy faster than an Alzheimer's dementia diagnosis. This is a disease that's going to bankrupt our country, and we're not even having a national conversation about it, which is why I wanted Sheila, who has been a supporter of this organization, Women's Alzheimer's Movement and Move for Minds, but she has really good, up-to-date information. What do you need to know today, financially, in your family, whether you have someone with Alzheimer's or not? What can people do today when they leave here that will make a difference financially? Not that they're going to be in Dan's situation, but what can they do?
So you may not know that some of the first signs of cognitive decline happen in a person's financial life. So somebody may stop opening their bills. Somebody may mix up all the information they send to the accountant for the tax return. Someone may go on an excessive spending binge. And often family members don't realize it until it gets to a point where it's a real problem. So I encourage everybody to keep in touch with their loved ones, their relatives, particularly who are a bit older, and understand how they're doing. I said earlier, you know, when raising my kids, I always wanted to stay in close contact with my kids to know what was going on in their lives and to know what path they were on. Well, I really think you have to do the same thing with your loved ones and the older ones in your lives, because they're going through these terrible moments, and you may not realize it. So it's really important.
But what were you saying? You were telling me earlier people should do what?
Right, okay, so first of all, plan early and often. You should know your loved one's financial advisor, the accountant, trust and estate attorney, their insurance agents, and know if you have someone with Alzheimer's or dementia, engage an elder care lawyer. An elder care lawyer is someone, Dan, you're shaking your head, An elder care lawyer is someone that not many people know about, and they can help you protect assets, and they can help you access government benefits, Medicaid facilities, all kinds of things. There are a lot of benefits out there that you may not realize, like the Veterans Administration has a veterans benefit that's called Aid in Attendance. It's not widely known at all, but if you have, if you're a veteran or your spouse has Alzheimer's, you can get this benefit from the government. You just have to apply for it. And in fact, there's a woman that in 2006 started an organization called veteransaid.org, and if you go to that website, it takes you through exactly the paperwork that you need to file, and it's an extension of a benefit. The other thing you need to do for these people is you need to freeze their credit. If you don't have a need for credit, freeze your credit, because there's a tremendous amount of scams that go on in the financial world. And if you shut down that ability for someone to check your credit, then you know no one can be applying for the loans in their names. No one, so it's a really good thing to do for Alzheimer's and dementia patients. The other thing that's really new in the industry is something called the contact authorization form. I think we're probably all familiar with powers of attorney for finances, power of attorney for healthcare. This is a new form that's coming into the industry because, as the population ages, how do you know as a financial advisor if you're getting calls from people that they don't sound quite right? They may call you three days in a row and ask the same question, or they may call and want to transfer money to kind of Joe Smith, who you've never heard of before and they've never made a wire transfer to before. There's a form called, UBS calls it a contact authorization form. I don't know what your financial institutions call it, but what it does is, say Maria called me and said, make this transfer, and I have never heard of this person, and it sounds off to me. If I had that contact authorization form on file, which she would have signed when she was of full mind, it would allow me to pick up the phone and call the person she put on that form. So maybe it was her son who's here today. And I could call him and say, I really can't give you any information about your mother's finances, but what I can tell you is we've seen some unusual behavior and you need to check in on her. So I think that's really important. It was, as I was preparing for this, I was having dialogue with my father. So now I'm freezing his credit. Now he's signing the contract authorization form. These are they're all small steps, but they're incredibly, incredibly important steps that we should all be taking.
And we'll put this up on the Women's Alzheimer's Movement website so you can go and get informed and you don't have to remember everything she said. What's the acronym that she said, though? Okay, good. So I'm going to open this up to questions that any of you may have for any of the people up here, not for me, because they're the experts. So I'd like you to feel free to ask them any questions about being a caregiver, about women's brains, about exercise, about meditation, about what you need to know about your finances. Go ahead.
Sorry, where's the mic? Thank you, Dan.
Okay.
Dan is actually, hello, am I in the mic? I know Dan since I'm probably 12 years old, but it's great to see you. I would like to know, my mother died of dementia, and I want to know, one, is dementia is the same thing as Alzheimer's, and two, if I have the genetic makeup, which I do believe I do, to get dementia/Alzheimer's, how do you handle it now? Where do you, besides the neuroendocrinologist, once you do go there, do they give you the capability of handling it? I mean, how does that work?
I start? Okay. First of all, I think I would recommend joining an Alzheimer's prevention clinic. I think there's a lot of confusion about Alzheimer's and whether it is genetic or not. In reality, about less than 1% of the entire population carries genetic mutations that make you develop Alzheimer's disease. So it's much less common than people tend to think. I don't know your personal history, but if your mom was diagnosed after age 60, 65, it's very unlikely to be a genetic mutation. There could be some kind of transmission factors that are not clear. There could be an ApoE4 genotype kind of thing, like a risk factor that does not make you develop Alzheimer's, it's not causative of Alzheimer's. So I think joining a prevention clinic or a neurologist who's an expert in in this kind of genetic materials, it would be very helpful just to get a better picture. Dementia is not the same thing as Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is the most common form of dementia, but there are many other forms of dementia, whether it's frontotemporal dementia, Lewy body dementia, vascular dementia, super common, Parkinson's disease with dementia. There are so many different forms. Alzheimer's is the most prevalent. In terms of prevention, depending on who you ask, there are some people who will advocate for pharmaceuticals. They will tell you need a vaccine for Alzheimer's. They will need you need to get tested whether or not you have amyloid in your brain, and then many people are very interested in removing the amyloid from your brain, should you have any. All clinical trials so far have failed in that regard. So it really looks like prevention by means of behavioral interventions are definitely a much safer way to go, especially if they're evidence-based, and if you do the things that you should be doing very consistently. Like Bob was saying, if you eat right for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, no matter how many books tell you that your brain will do so much better, it's just not true. It takes a long time for the brain to really experience benefits from your lifestyle. So there are 2 major things that people have been focused on, and we at the Alzheimer's Prevention Clinic at Weill Cornell apply a multimodality intervention protocol where we look at your medical history. We try to minimize every medical comorbidity that increases your risk of Alzheimer's, diabetes, obesity, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, high homocysteine, high cholesterol. These are all things that need to be taken under control. They're modifiable. We can do that by means of medical intervention, and then we need to really intervene on your lifestyle. Diet, exercise, intellectual activity, social engagement, medication, sleep, all these parameters.
Next question, go ahead.
Maria, thank you. Yeah, it's on. Maria, thank you for doing this. It's amazing. Dan, I wanted to just echo what you said. I have, my ex-wife was diagnosed with early onset at 50, and she's 55, and everything that you say is so true. It's a thief in the night. It's the worst. It's the worst. And I really feel for you. We're part of a small group of caregivers for her. And she was like B. She was like B. She was a titan of business. So.
Well, you know, the one thing that I've learned is that we're an army now. You know, I met a gentleman from Korea whose wife was going through the same thing, and we had an interpreter to talk to each other. Mm-hmm. But what we said with our eyes,
Totally.
He knew he was from Seoul, and I'm from New York, but we share the same. We have so much more in common. And what we have to do is we have to, for lack of a better term, we have to domesticate the understanding that millennials are involved, will have to deal with this because they will lose whatever they've gained over the course of their lives, that it changes people's personalities. You know, it's the 6th leading cause of death, but in reality, there are so many other things short of death: alcoholism, drug addiction, opioid addiction, depression. People have car crashes because they lean back and think that I gotta go home and deal with this, and they don't realize they're going 65 or 70 miles an hour and they run into something. Right. But there's, so you know.
Could I just briefly just say one other thing? Just, I'm in finance too, and we didn't talk about long-term care, but I said this to Tom from Genworth. I asked my ex to buy long-term care when she was 41, and she looked at me like I was out of my head, and I basically forced her to sign the application, and she's living off of that now. I mean, it has saved her.
Can I want to, you know, I go around the country, and there's 2 things. There's long-term care and there's elder abuse, and I've seen, you know, I've seen people take their step-parents and take them to another state, drop them off, get a power of attorney, and then clean their bank account out.
Yes.
But I try to tell young people all the time, if you get lucky, you get old. And there's this anti-ageism that still exists in America today where somehow it's got to be new and shiny. and somehow you're going to be 25. You know, I say to people all the time, they say, you know, 40 is the new 25, and 50 is the new 35, and 60 is the new 45. I say 70 is the new 69. You know, there's a certain reckoning that you have to come to realize, you know, being aged is not bad, but that long-term care is so important that if we could get millennials to understand, put that in now, because that rainy day could be a hurricane.
And you can talk to, obviously, the Genworth people and Tom about that if you have interest. But I think that point about being 40, being 35, investing in long-term care, being 30 and being interested in brain health, that's the message we at the Women's Alzheimer's Movement are trying to push out. That's why we went to Equinox. I went to Judy Taylor and I said, you are renowned for sexy, hip, hot bodies. I want to be in there. And everybody in the Alzheimer's community is like, they'll never touch you. You can't go there. And they stepped up. And I say it now to every beauty company who won't go near this issue. And they are the ones, beauty, fashion, make billions of dollars off of women, and they won't step into this space. And you have a voice to change that, because, you know, that's where the money's going to come from to fund the research to get to the answer of this. And also voting for people who care about NIH funding is a critical part of this as well. Question over there. We have another question.
Yes. Hi, everybody. I was diagnosed with Alzheimer's 6 months ago. And I've been put on a lot of medication. And as you can see, I'm okay, doing okay. But I was wondering if there's anything I should be doing or can do from your perspective so that I stay around for a while.
What's your name?
Kathy.
Kathy. Welcome here, Kathy. Thank you for having the bravery. This is a big part of this disease. I can't tell you how many people, I travel a lot, and women come up to me in their 40s and 50s diagnosed, but whisper to me or come up and talk about being a caregiver. If I've learned anything from the AIDS community and from the cancer people, we got to speak up. And this is a huge thing that's still kind of whispered about. So Kathy, Lisa, what could, or Wendy, what could she do that she's not doing today?
Yeah, so some of the work that I'm doing in my lab is trying to personalize exercise. So it's one thing to say, oh, just go exercise more, go ahead and do it. But what level of exercise is benefiting your brain? And what if you have just been diagnosed with Alzheimer's versus you don't have Alzheimer's right now, but maybe you have it in your family? So the work that I'm trying to do is to look at different populations and explore what is the minimum and what is the optimum kind of exercise for your immediate brain health. And of course, I would love to do 44-year follow-up study. That takes a long time to do. But the first thing that we can do is figure out how exercise is immediately affecting your brain right now. And everybody in this room can start that. Just by monitoring what kind of exercise puts you in the best mood. Everybody can answer that question. What kind of exercise gives you better focus for the rest of the day? All you have to do is know what questions to ask yourself and start to analyze that. So unfortunately, these studies that I'm doing in my lab are ongoing, but that is the direction that some NIH-funded research is going to try and understand not just, yeah, exercise is good, but what formula, what prescription of exercise is best preventatively and to kind of address somebody that has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. I'm happy to talk to you later, too, about
You wanted to say something, Bo?
I'll teach you to meditate.
I've tried that,
No,
and
but there are many,
I'm not very good at it.
No, but again, there's a lot of misunderstandings. There are difficult, complicated forms of meditation that are off-putting. There are simple, accessible techniques that we teach 10-year-old children, so I would be an honor to teach you.
Take him up on that. Take him up on that. And also, Kathy, yeah, there's some trials that we're funding.
Right. If you're interested in that, I would say, are you taking medications for Alzheimer's, like in general? You do. So antioxidants is something that if you're not doing it already, you might want to consider that. Vitamin C and vitamin E, I can tell you the doses. Omega-3 fatty acids, I can tell you the dose. These are very important things to do, especially if you're taking medications, if you're being treated. I would start with that if you're not doing it already. And B vitamins, vitamin B12.
Tell people, and her book is here, and you can talk to, they all are going to sign their books, but tell people, because I get a lot of questions all the time. I just did a story with her the other day for the Today Show, and the woman had like 30 bottles of supplements that she was taking. And people come up to me every day and ask me what supplements they should take. So can you answer that a little bit?
Yes, so those were too many supplements. She's just slightly overdid it. So it depends specifically. Everybody's different, and depending on your medical history, there are some parameters that you might want to address, which I'm not familiar with. But if your blood glucose levels are high, or if you're insulin resistant, then you take some supplements. If your body absorbs or produces too much cholesterol, you want to try plant sterols, for example. But as women, diet is extremely important, and there are some foods and supplements that are specifically helpful to women. So antioxidants, I mentioned, omega-3 fatty acids, especially DHA, are crucial for women's brains.
But explain, because some people don't understand that it has to have DHA.
Yes, so omega-3 fatty acids, we hear about it in the news all the time. There are 3 major types. They're called ALA, EPA, DHA. Your brain needs DHA. I won't spell it out, so you just need to remember DHA. It's the one fatty acid that your brain really needs and craves on a daily basis, and so many people just don't have enough in their diets. And especially when the brain is under a lot of stress, this is really one of the few supplements that everybody believes really works. So I would say take that 100%. If you're taking aspirin or any blood thinning medication, then you don't want to take too much. So there are side effects, but talk to your doctors about that. Antioxidants are vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E, and selenium. You can get them from foods or from supplements. They're better from foods. So if you have a problem or a medical condition, sometimes it's best to supplement because you need a little bit of an extra kick. But if you do not, and if you just do that preventatively or for brain health, I strongly recommend foods over supplements because it's been shown that they're better. They just work better. Vitamin A from carrots, very good sources, anything orange. Vitamin C from lemons, oranges, kale, if you like kale. Vitamin E from almonds, extra virgin olive oil. These are very good. Flax seeds. So flax seeds are fantastic foods for women. Specifically, they contain estrogens that really help with the hormonal issues we mentioned before. Chickpeas, believe it or not, they're great foods for women, again, because they're very rich in estrogens, and they also give you like complex carbohydrates for brain energy. And selenium comes from Brazil nuts. If you don't eat them, try them. I eat them every day. And strawberries. Actually, strawberries are very rich in phytoestrogens and a number of vitamins and minerals.
Okay, one last question. Lee?
So the menopause connection is fascinating to me because with menopause comes lack of sleep. So there's, and who isn't among us sleep interruptive? So 2 things about that. One, someone sent me information that anyone taking Ambien-like drugs, which I've done after 4 days of bad sleep just to get through it, has a higher propensity to develop Alzheimer's or dementia-related diseases. A, is that true? And B, one of the things I do, because I've had the great pleasure of having the wonderful Bob Roth teach me how to meditate, is do the mantra that you gave me in the middle of the night when I cannot fall asleep, and it works. And Bob, tell us how we can, anybody here who's in New York can benefit from, can we come and learn how to meditate? Because it is so simple, but so effective.
So you can just go to tm.org, and there's on there, it's a nonprofit organization, and you can click down and find the name of the teachers. Or, you want to write this down, and this is my email address. You can email me directly, even if it's live streaming, and I promise I'll respond. It's Bob at David Lynch Foundation. Make it simpler. RROTH at tm.org. and I will respond. Can I say one last thing
Yeah.
on this? This overall thing. Everything that's being talked about today has to be done. It has to be done. There's no wiggle room. There's no wiggle room. There's no, well, if I just put this off, if I ignore it, if I don't eat right, if I don't, it's not going to go away. And having a forum, and I said this last time when we spoke, I've never been to anything like the events that Maria puts on. And everything is practical and everything is down to earth. And even when it comes to meditation, one man came and said, I don't have the time. And his son, 15-year-old son, was there with him. I think his mother had sent him because she meditated. And he said, Dad, there's 1,440 minutes in a day. You don't have 40 minutes. And then he said something, I knew it was his mom, for a little self-care. He had the dad until he said, the kid said self-care, but it's true. We have to prioritize. I just want to say in support of everything, we have to prioritize all of these things. And women, from my experience, are the first to learn and are among the first to let it go, because everybody else is more important, and in fact, nobody else is more important.
And I can honestly go.
Maria, I just want to say one thing to all of the caregivers out there, and many of you may be caregivers, you don't know. Learn to forgive yourself, because no one will mess up your mind more than you. You're not perfect. You do get upset, you do get angry, you do curse at God or whoever, but get over it and then go right back to taking care and loving that person. You're not perfect, but you're doing a hell of a job.
I just want to say that finally, once again, all of these people are here. They've spent their time. They've got their books. They've got information. Please use them. You paid to be here. You worked really hard, and they're the best in the country, and they're here for you. But I just want to say that I've been working in this space for 15 years. I've been a women's advocate, a women's empowerment advocate. This is the biggest women's empowerment issue on our planet today because it affects us emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, financially, politically, every aspect of our lives. If we lose our minds, we're no good to anybody, and women are losing their minds at a rate never seen before. And so we have got to be the army, the messengers, the reporters. We can make the change. I've asked my kids, for example, to help me because I'm a sugar freak, and I've asked them to take it out of my hands, to take stuff out of my refrigerator. My daughters come in and clean out all my makeup. This is actually really interesting. There's a lot of toxins in our makeup, in our cleaning products. She's like, if you care about brain health, Mommy, like you tell everybody, I'm cleaning out the house. So she comes in, she cleans out the makeup. She goes, we don't know. Is it toxins in makeup? Is it toxins in cleaning products? Is it, what is it? Is it, the people we work with, the stress we're raising kids, we're working, we're trying to parent, we're trying to provide all of these aspects. And if we don't start funding women's health research, voting for people who talk about these issues, right? And voting for people who want to fund research. And if we don't start doing the things that they're all advocating, no one's going to help us. No one is going to step forward and help us. I've been on the front lines, and I'm telling you, it's up to us. So I want to thank you for being here, for supporting this movement. I hope you had fun. You got to have fun.
Maria.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Now you can eat. Now you can eat. And I want to thank everybody on the Women's Alzheimer's Movement. I want to thank for putting this on, all our sponsors. The Honeybees has sponsored all of this. Everybody's book is for sale. Sandy Gleistein, the producer, you want to say something more?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, New York.
Thank
you're
you, New York.
amazing
Thank
because up to date we have raised $300,000 and $75,000 came from your city, which is amazing. We have a couple of people who we are going to continue fundraising throughout all of June, so don't give up.
Yeah.
We have amazing prizes. We have a spa in San Francisco that you can, win the prize to.
Quiet.
You can be put in a raffle to go to what I call the Fat Farm for the Brain in Wyoming.
This is cool.
Amazing. It's a week with these neurological experts to learn how to take care of your brain. You have to pay for your transportation, but you get 7 days for 2 if you win that prize. And so I'm just saying they're great things. Read your emails. They're coming from us. And I just have to say one other thing, which is I'd like to announce that the top 3 fundraisers for New York, I hope they're both, that 2 of them are here. Lauren Miller-Rogan, who gave us such a wonderful opening welcome. I don't know if Lauren is still here, but Lauren, I
love working with Lauren.
I know Lauren is the best. Lauren raised $5,160, and as a result, gets a beautiful bouquet of roses delivered to your home. Yeah. And Natalie Fair, our wonderful board member, whereas Natalie raised $6,398, and that's in this city alone. I just want to say about Natalie, she's viciously, ferociously raising money in all our cities. So, and she'll be
And
getting
she's got
a
her
wonderful-
kids here.
Oh,
Yeah.
excellent. Equinox gift card coming your way that I hope you'll use for a good massage. And Christina Carlino, sadly not here today, but raised $20,750.
And wait a second, one more thing I want to mention, that I've just started a women's health brain game thing with Brain Headquarters. You all have it in your bag, a month free. Try it out. It's something
Yes.
you can do on a daily or once or twice a week. It trains your brain, helps you with processing. It's designed for women's brain health. Check it out.
And the final thing is that Equinox kindly worked with our friend Bob Roth to do an iTunes meditation app. Go
Whoa.
to iTunes and you go and you put in Move for Minds. All the money that you download from this app comes to WHAM, to the Women's Alzheimer's
Yay, Bob
Movement.
Roth. Yay, Bob Roth. Thank
So
you all
anyway,
very much.
now go eat.
Eat,
Go
eat.
eat. And thank you.